Well, good afternoon and good day, no, depending on where you are in the world today. Hello there, women in the sustainability space. Hi, I am Sarah Beth Aubrey. I'm the founder, CEO of the Envoy Group, which is a global agriculture and energy consulting firm that I started 20 years ago this year. Celebrating 20 years is an exciting milestone in this space. And we are also, in part of our group, we have founded a great program that many of you, I've seen the registrations come in for our conversation today, are part of, and that is our The WISE, the Women in Sustainability Experience Network. So that this program today, this conversation and the content we're going to be covering is really geared towards those of you who are working in sustainability across any industry and are also women in the space. So welcome to the conversation, and I just want to say hello and welcome you in, settle in, and have a great time today. This is a really casual presentation, and how this will run is I'm going to present with you a topic. Our topic for today, if you can see the screen, if you're looking at the program with us today, and not just on audio, you'll see our program is called Stepping into Sustainability and Messaging Your Sustainability Strategy. So how we will run this is I will speak for a little while here as we begin and share some content with you that hopefully is thought-provoking and is helpful to you. My mission in doing these kind of webinars is always to give you quick, actionable stuff that you can take and put into your business right away. And then we will open it up for a live Q&A. So as I conclude my opening remarks today, someone out there in our cyberspace will help us and open up the mics to all of you as well. And we will have a conversation where we can talk a little bit about this content, your thoughts, where you are. And as you do that, I welcome you to say your name, your industry, and introduce yourself as well. But let's get into the content first. So again, this is me, happy you're here. And as far as the WISE goes, and how did we get to this place, and why on earth are we having this webinar with this topic? So as I mentioned, I've worked in the agriculture and energy spaces for over 20 years, founding my consulting firm 20 years ago. I guess I've been in the industry 25. And I've realized that these spaces are connected. While I work in mostly those areas, today sustainability is pervasive. We're all working on sustainability regardless of our industry. But things like agriculture and energy have led me into a much broader and more global conversation because of things like renewables. Most companies are looking at that in some way to add that, as well as on the agriculture side. Many organizations, companies, and individuals who would have never thought that they knew anything about agriculture or were touching agriculture are suddenly finding it funnily critical to their sustainability conversation. Things like fiber, fuel, textiles, food, and the sustainability aspects of those, all of that related to manufacturing. And then on the carbon side, interestingly enough, agriculture has become a really big source of the climate conversation because of carbon capture and storage that we're able to do in agricultural fields and in woodlands and rural areas. So it's exciting and gratifying for me to know that those core industries that I've grown up in and built a practice in are really where we are adding touches throughout any global industry that you're involved in today. And so that's what I want to have this conversation about. So I'm excited to see, as I've looked at the registrations come in, industry wide. We're coming from all kinds of backgrounds. So do share your background and how it connects to what we're talking about today. Because no matter what industry we're in, how we're managing supply chain and the conversation with our supply chain partners is critical. And that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so to kick it off, I want to start by talking a little bit about why our focus on women in sustainability today. What's driving that? And why is this particular topic fairly important, unique, and significant? And why is it worth having? Well, there's a couple of reasons, and I've outlined 4 of them. And I invite you, as we go to the chat here in just a few minutes into opening it up for all of us, I invite you to let me know which one of these, or there's probably more than one, I would guess, but which one of these is most significant of a driver for you, or said another way, a pain point for you perhaps. So we see today that if you are a woman in a sustainability career, most likely there has not been a blueprint for you to follow. Often you did not have a previous company mentor. Often you are the first one in your organization to be in the sustainability career, or your team is the first build out and you may be leading that or be a member of that, but you're probably building the plane a little bit as you fly it. The other compelling driver that we're seeing is impact. Companies are moving into sustainability so quickly, right? They went from many companies not talking about it all to having plans, strategies, goals, different tactics, changing vendors, changing products, changing the way they do business. It almost feels like, for some of us, like it's overnight. Some organizations have focused on sustainability for a long time and are simply upticking the work that they do, maybe making it more large, or having a bigger set of functions that they're applying. But many organizations, literally in all industries, have gone from not talking about sustainability to talking about it all the time. And so the impact that you're being asked to make is essential. And the expectations that you're being put, having put on you are really high. So that is a big driver to have a special conversation around your career and just really managing that and building a network and trying to understand, how do I get solutions? Where do I learn? Where do I get new ideas? Where do I get educated? Where do I see examples? That's really important. The third driver is that you have to deliver results quickly, and often without a lot of support and or a lot of resources. We're going to spend some time on this in a few minutes when I get into the 4 steps that we'll cover in messaging. But many of you are suddenly having started in this role, your goals a lot of times are more accelerated, perhaps than in other roles that you've had, especially when you're developing them yourself, then you're delivering on them, and now you're trying to figure out how to get the rest of your supply chain, your organization, internal, external, customers, stakeholders. It's a lot. And so sometimes you have a ton of support. In many organizations, support is really strong at the corporate or the top level. In other organizations, it's less strong. Sometimes you have great support there, but you're looking out at your supply chain or your customers or your suppliers or your vendors, and the support is not the same as what's happening at the corporate level, and you've got to disconnect. And that gap is a big job to fill. And then there's the resources aspect of why drivers are important today with us. Is many of these things are new. Now, some companies are putting a great deal of funding behind this, especially if you're finding yourself in a brand new role or a whole team's been built around it. Yet at the same time, I bet as you've begun to get into what's possible, what you want to change, what you need to change, I'm guessing that some of the dollars to do that are things that you're finding yourself surprised at how much that's going to take. So that puts a little bit of pressure on us as well. All right. And then the fourth driver today that I think is relevant is you're often the first to create and implement a brand new strategy. Being the first is cool, right? It feels fun at certain times, and it can feel very important. And gratification in our jobs, in our industries, is very, very important to us. It's very valuable. It makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. But the fact that you may have to be taking those steps as the person who is the first to create it can be really full of a lot of pressure and uncertainty, and you may make mistakes, and that can be not fun, right? We like to do our jobs well. We love to do well by doing good. So that's really why, I guess, ladies and gentlemen, that as I began to think about what is a network that could be useful, what do we need in this industry, one or more of these things has been brought up to me by many, many people, whether they are the leadership in the company, the directors of a trade group, or workers who are, adding themselves into roles. These things seem to be common threads. So like I said, when we turn to Q&A here in a few minutes, I really welcome you to comment on which one of these drivers is most significant for what you're facing today. All right, so let's step into the meat of what I'd like to cover before we have our conversation. And this hopefully really gives you something to think about. Again, as we do these WISE events, our events are sort of similar to today's conversation. We usually have a content piece brought by myself or some other folks, and then a good discussion afterwards. And I really want you to be able to think about, how do you use this? So take a screenshot of this if you want. I think you can get the slides after the conversation. I think our friends at Informa, who are hosting this with us today, I think they'll send this to you if you ask. If not, you can sure message me on LinkedIn or something. But anyway, these are what I consider the 4 components of successfully messaging your sustainability strategy. I'm going to cover each one of them individually, but take a look at this and kind of seat into, are you doing all of these? That's probably my first snapshot overview that I would ask you to take a look at. The 4 components are values, goals, bandwidth, and long game. Now, again, I'll go into them in a little bit more detail, but I invite you as we turn to our conversation here in a little while to think about which ones of these are going really well for you. What are you doing that's like, this is going well? We should be, pat ourselves on the back or champion that or really recognize that this is fine. We're doing well here. We've aligned well here. We've set this up correctly. And then on the other side of the coin, which one of these are going poorly or have you overlooked entirely? And for many of you, I think that will be the case because as I built this out in 2024 and started teaching on it, whether it was in a session, something like this, a keynote, whatever it was, a private session for a company, strategy session, these were things that emerged for me through those conversations. And usually there's a couple that are going really well. And I don't know if it's because that was the way the company is designed or if it was something that was easy for them, but they are going well. And then there's some that are either you just haven't thought about it or you've had some stops and starts. And so they're all fixable, but I do think they're intertwined. So I suppose while we have a box here with with the pieces, we also have a circle that really identifies the fact that these need to operate in concert. And honestly, you can use this stuff for any strategy you have to message. Now, we're talking very specifically about sustainability, but you can use this kind of a metric in a lot of different ways to weigh your decisions and then your tactics against before you roll them out. See, that's the critical thing. If you can start to think about these 4, and just, we're sort of beginning the year here. If you begin to think about these early on in your next strategy that you're rolling out, your next message that you're rolling out, the next program that you're going to be either selling or implementing, if you tie those back to these 4, that is really going to give you a very strong measure of success, a chance to be a lot more successful. So let me go into them and then I'll go into the details. There's 4 here again, my 4 steps to messaging your sustainability strategy. The first one is values, and it is really how does your sustainability strategy align with the company's values? Second, once you've taken a look at those, you've got to have goals and metrics to drive business achievement. Sustainability is no different. Now, many of you are going to say, we already have sustainability goals, Sarah Beth. I'm not ignoring that, but I'm going to pay a little bit of different attention to that when we get to it in a minute. Bandwidth. Bandwidth means that do you have the time to implement all you're wanting to do right now? What is most immediate? And try to figure out a way to get yourself, your organization, or the team out of that decision fatigue that they may be facing when trying to implement a brand new type of program or strategy. And the last one is long game. Sustainability takes years, decades, and even generations. And for some people, I've said that to them and they're like, that's terrible. I can't wait generations. The climate's burning. You don't have to think about it as an immediate thing because many of those changes you can implement now and they build upon and they get better and you continue to message that and that strategy builds on the next strategy. So think of it as building blocks. And then everything is progressive when you look at it that way. All right, let's move into each of these 4. Okay, strategy 1, as I said, about your values. Considering how sustainability aligns with your company's values. Again, some of these are going to sound obvious, but I'm going to give examples of ways where when they were overlooked, things went awry. So obviously a company, a trade group, an organization, whether it's privately held, corporate, publicly traded, or if you work for a trade association or a cooperative or something like that, those values are usually the founder's legacy. And they are what many organizations use for what I would call guidepost and how to have that totem that makes sense. And you can always look to it and say, this is where we start. This is what matters most. And we take that out into the world with our products and services. But the problem that we've seen with sustainability in recent years, because companies are wanting to add it, grow it, change it, or do it so quickly, sometimes we honestly are seeing companies that don't align them with their values. So my questions for you, I'm going to get to in a moment. Let me give a story first. So the story, I was speaking at a summit in December of 23, so a little while ago, and I gave something similar to these remarks, although they get a little bit better every time I give them because there's always a better story from someone who's faced a really unique challenge. A gentleman who's a CEO of a mid-sized tech company came up to me and we had a little conversation. He goes, this one's really scared me and I really messed this one up. I messed it up badly. He shared that they worked internally, at the leadership level, and they kept that leadership level really small. CEO, VP, HR. They didn't involve the director, program manager level. And they talked about sustainability and they created this thing and they built this plan and they built logos for their new sustainability initiatives. And they literally, these are his words, not mine. He's like, I literally tacked them on, the product jugs and they were ready to go. And it backfired on him badly. He shared because internally his marketing director quit, his sales manager quit, and he lost 40% of customers that first few months. That is tragic. Why? Why did that happen? He had people coming to him saying, what is this? I don't understand this. Who are you? Are you going a different direction? This doesn't make sense to me anymore. I don't think we're on the same page. I don't think you're have the philosophy that I thought you did. You're hearing all these things. And those people fled. And he was in the process of trying to do some incredible damage control and repair. It was a really hard story to hear because he knew sustainability was important. And many of the things he did were things they were already doing, they were just enhancing. But because he stopped and just put them out there, but didn't really take the time to message it alongside the company's values and say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is why sustainability is part of that, they really got it wrong. And it cost them bad. And so I think that's why I've got pose a couple, 3 questions here for you. Like, if you were to think about your sustainability strategy today and how you're messaging it, is it right on? I mean, is it aligning with the values? Does your team's strategy need to go all the way back to the basics? And that basic being values and where you stand for and your legacy and your guidepost? And then is that work truly aligned with the values in all or part? Because it could be in generally aligned, but as you implement it in different systems, situations, it could be off. So does that need to be tweaked? Or is the strategy fine, but the message does not match the rest of the company's message on values and legacy? Boy, is that ever a big one too. So think about that. If you are just attaching, our values are, God, country, family, and sustainability, it seems a little contrite, doesn't it? So it's really got to be part of that message and built in a way that feels genuine. Okay, enough on that. But I really hope that as you begin into your year, you talk values. Number two, it's all about goals. Now, again, many of you are going to tell me, I've already got goals. I've got so many sustainability goals. I'm about ready to drown in goals. What I'm talking about here is not the new goals. I want you again to look back just a little bit and think about how sustainability is part of that, not an adjunct. If you've listened to all the remarks I'm going to give with you today, you're going to find that it's really critical. The message I'm going to reiterate many, many times is that the sustainability is not we're doing sustainability. There are sustainability activities that you can implement for sure. Yet at the same time, so much of sustainability is woven into the everyday living. So if you aren't weaving that into all goals, in all departments, in all ways, in a way that's unique to that area, then it's going to be really difficult to message because it's not going to make sense to those individuals with those goals. So if you have sustainability goals, because you're a sustainability provider, worker, leader, you've got that added onto your title, whatever it is, that's one thing. But it's really not effective in messaging unless you tell folks about their own goals that they have in their department and their job, because everybody has them, how sustainability is part of that, because it's got to be about them. And so messaging sustainability, here's our company sustainability goals, take the binder, read it, go do it. That feels a little like, like you're just adding more stuff to my plate, right? If it's your departments and are really taking a look at, all right, when we set this year's goals, or as individuals, when I set my goals, how do those individual goals that the company has roll up to what I do, and how does my job help us bring those? And it's really got to be across divisions, departments. I really think there's a lot of areas of collaboration here. Many organizations, instead of hiring a sustainability team, create sustainability committees first to really drill this down throughout, let it seep down throughout the company into all of the areas before they build out a team. I don't know that there's a right or wrong to that, but it's really a way to pull those together. So those things of collaboration, opportunities for change throughout all the goals that you set is really the most important part of what I'm trying to say here. So it's not create sustainability goals, go do those. It's what are our sustainability objectives, and how are the goals that every part of our organization have able to achieve those in the unique way that makes sense to them. Because how the supply chain folks are going to achieve sustainability objectives is far different than what HR is going to do. It's far different what your maintenance staff's going to do. It's far different than what your suppliers and your purchasers are going to do. So it's got to be unique. Okay, strategy 3. It is about your bandwidth. Now, if you're reading ahead, you're going to see the line in the bottom of the slide and go, are you joking me? And I will talk about it in a second, but now you're going to look at it. So strategy 3 is about bandwidth. One of the biggest reasons I added this one to the 4 phases is because I heard this complaint so many times, and you've heard it too. You're probably even having this complaint yourself. I've got too much to do. I cannot add any more, right? You just feel overwhelmed. Not only are you right now learning some of those sustainability aspects, but in addition, you're trying to figure out how to do them all, add them all. Then I've already talked about goals and values, and I'm telling you to go all the way back to the beginning. It's a lot. So the thing is, we're just literally looking at priority. And priority, if you haven't ever read the book Essentialism, I would pull that out for this year, because he talks about the word priority is a single thing. Now we have adapted that to be priorities, put an S on the end, and made priority, which is really the only thing I can do right now, into a multiple. And that really dilutes them, if you think about it. And so what is the priority in sustainability that you have? And there are certain tasks that roll up under that. You may have multiple things you're going to do with that. But the fact is, instead of operating in silos, what is the main priority we're working on? And you just don't have to accomplish every single one of those this year. And for many of you, the little remark that I have at the bottom of the slide might be the most important, effective thing of all. And I would challenge you to take 5 things off of your sustainability to-do list this year. I know many people are saying, well, we don't have time, we got to do this. But think about it. You've got to do it well. Remember when we talked back to the drivers of why I feel like this is a conversation we should be having? One of those drivers is impact and expectation. When we spread ourselves too thin and we try to do too many things, and we have too many different factors involved with that, support here, lack of support here, message is good here, not effective here, values are lined up here, not over here. You have a lot to do. And so it's really more impactful to do well and to really master a couple of these areas while you're working to prepare to start those others. And from a messaging standpoint, if you are the one that's messaging it, whether it's just talking verbally to a team or you're the comms person of the company, you're really going to be able to message it a lot more effectively if the message isn't 15 paragraphs. We're going to do these 82 things. No, these are the things we're doing. We're really getting clean about them. And we're going to show you how we are making it a priority and how it's a benefit to you. So that's what I would share, is that another reason that messaging strategy can be effective is when you tell people, I'm not adding a lot more to your plate. Most people like that. So what could you remove from your strategy in order to make your bandwidth more doable and your impact more powerful? All right, last one. So now it's really about all of those things tied together. But I call this section the long game. It's a little bit like bandwidth, only even if you took everything off your list and focused just on one thing and it was super easy, it still would have to be something that happens and changes over time. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a program at the Sustainable Manufacturing Summit. And one of our topics is the 5 phases of adaptation. And that's why I really think that sustainability is a great example of something that takes a long game. Sneak peek here, but it starts with awareness. Nobody knows about X until someone brings it to them. And it goes through a process and ends up with adaptation, which is it's not the new normal, it is the normal, and everybody forgot what the previous normal was. So sustainability is one of those things. I think there will become a time when we aren't really using this term. I think the WISE network over the next decade won't be necessary anymore because we will have spent the time to make sustainability so integral into the processes that it's not a special thing. This conversation about how to message it correctly will no longer be needed. Today it's critical, and I think it's really important, but it's really a long game. And remember, when it's a long game, it includes community, stakeholders, environment, and obviously financials. So your focus in one area affects others, and you've really got to think of it as a long game strategy. So milestones are important. Most great organizations, when they set goals, they set milestones to achieve them. But I would really ask that you go back to those this year and understand, taking bandwidth, goals, and values into consideration, how are those major milestones really going to be done realistically, effectively, and full of impact? And is it possible? Does it make sense? And would it be better if for some of those, the long game was something that you extended? Instead of saying, in 12 months, we're going to do it, maybe it's in 18 months, we're going to do it really well. So again, I'm not trying to slow people's progress down. I'm trying to make the impact better while allowing you to do a good job messaging it. And so if you're talking about your sustainability strategy, always point out that it's not immediate, that it can have pretty quick impact, can have quick improvements, but those improvements are cumulative. They're compounding interest. They get better over time. And so sustainability is for sure a long game. So with that in mind, a couple quick takeaways before we move over to Q&A is customize your values, get personal metrics, discuss bandwidth and prioritize, and really take a look at milestones and think about things in the long game. So with that, I want to just, invite you also to something that's coming up before we move to Q&A. So, we are here for the live webinar today. And then, excuse me, I flipped the slide here. After that, we are going to be having me at an event called the Sustainable Manufacturing Expo. And it's also during the Westpac, which is February 4th and 5th in Anaheim, California. And I will be speaking on this topic there. We will be having a WISE network, the Women in Sustainability Network meetup. This is across all industries. So what's exciting is this expo is free to attend. You can see my code speaker, grab it, steal it, and sign up. And if you want to come to this event and be part of these sessions, part of this dialogue, I would love to see you there. So you are welcome to come. It is a complimentary event. We are hosting it. We will be having a panel, and then I'm also going to be speaking as well. And so I think this conversation is one we can definitely continue. So ask us more about the WISE. And again, now as we begin to turn towards our question and answer period, and we'll open up everybody's mics, I really want to invite you to think about first, or either one of these, but one, the drivers, which are the drivers that we talked about at the beginning is most significant for you? And then how are things going for you with those 4 phases? Which one's really working for you? And if you don't mind, for the good of all of us, why? Share how you've done it well. I'd love to know. We're here to learn. And then the challenges you're having, if you're comfortable sharing, which one is challenging. Hopefully we can get some questions answered on that today. So once again, I want to, before we move to the live Q&A portion of our chat, thanks so much to Informa and the team at the Sustainable Manufacturing Expo for sponsoring this event and the opportunity for us to gather out there with the WISE, the Women in Sustainability Experience. So with that, let's gather around, and we'll open up the mics and we'll continue on with our live question and answer portion.